the welcome song, there's the first song, there's the chalice, there's the cover, there's the ceremony that comes after that. That's all leaders in the book. Anybody needs to get home. The children lead, the call to worship, and then the song.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, you're right. Right after call to worship, I guess we could say, stand as you're willing and able. We're all standing, but before we start singing.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be bright, bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be bright, bright, sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue sky. I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be bright, sunshiny day. Gonna be bright,
Good morning. My name is Marge Stockton. I'm your worship leader for this morning's service, and this is Common Ground, our celebration of worship for people of many paths who gather to share in the responsible search for meaning and truth. This is a warm and open community where all who come with open minds and kind hearts are welcome, regardless of ability, age, race, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We hope that all who join us here today find this a safe place to worship. Well, turn the page, Marge. Now, please greet the people around you. You'll have time to greet everyone later after coffee. Say hello. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Now, as you are willing and able, please join the Come As You Are choir in our opening song, Better Days.
We have come in the light to this place, in the light with our hearts, in the light open wide. We are here in the light giving voice, in the light to the truth, in the light we divide. Let us sing for today. Let us learn better ways, showing love in the light, giving hope in the light we create, in the light better days. We are born in the dark, we are fed in the dark, we connect in the dark through the veil. We are held in the dark, we are healed in the dark, mysteries in the dark we reveal. Let us sing for today. Let us learn better ways, showing love in the dark, giving hope in the dark we create, in the dark better days. Time is now. We begin where we are. We begin, we have all. We begin that we need to renew. We begin to release. We begin to rebuild. We begin to believe. Let us sing for today. Let us learn better ways, showing love. We begin giving hope. We begin, we create. We begin better days. Let us sing for today. Let us learn better ways, showing love. We begin giving hope. We begin, we create. We begin better days, showing love. We begin giving hope. We begin, we create. We begin better days.
This is the fire of our faith. As Jennifer Palmer lights our chalice flame, let us say these words together. We kindle this flame in expectation, not the expectation that justice will soon prevail, not the expectation that the struggle will soon be won, yet in the expectation that companionship and joy will be ours on the journey. We kindle this flame in community and expectation. I invite you to join me in a renewal of our sacred promises. Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus we are covenant with each other. You may be seated, and as you're seated, move toward the walls, please, to make room for some of our latecomers drifting in. At this time, Kimberly Ledbetter, our Pathways Board Member at Large and Membership Committee Chair, and Stan Roskoski, our Pathways Board President, will lead us through the new member ceremony.
Okay. Today we are welcoming 2 new members to the Pathways family. We honor our newest members and their decision to join our Pathways community. Would each of you please come up one at a time to the microphone and introduce yourselves and share with us briefly your journey to Pathways. Then step over to your right near the piano or the table as the other person comes up. So, okay. Jackie Cutlip.
Okay, this is my usual starting line. I am standing. Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie Cutlip. I have been parts of Pathways for probably over a year. I started with the book discussion group as a result of friends encouraging me to do so. And I have to tell you, though, these are the most witty, knowledgeable, kind women I think I've ever known. And everyone has been so welcoming. Over time, I've met a few other folks. I've met from some guys. And I have to tell you guys, I have never seen so many progressive men in the great state of Texas in one place. I really feel like, as a result of the book club and other encounters I've had, that Pathways emblemizes the road to something very good. And that road is tolerance, love for all creations, for me, especially four-legged ones. So you will often see little hairs on my clothing. And also represents a lack of judgment and a lack of judging others. So this is what I've learned since I've been a part of a number of you. As we think about pathways, I think about another path that was spoken of. You may recall Robert Frost years ago spoke in a poem about, first of all, miles to go before I sleep. And there was another one where he came upon a path, and there was a truncation in the road, and he had to decide which way to go. He ended up deciding on one way. That became his path. Well, in a similar fashion, I've been through a lot of different groups, business. My husband passed away, a lot of different things. And so at this point in time, I feel like that I am at the path, and I'm at the pathway. And I will just say, respects to Robert Frost, it's late in life, but it's never too late. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Palmer, and I found Pathways searching online. I had been looking for a spiritual community because I don't seem to fit in anywhere, so I was really happy to find this place. I didn't even know such a place existed, so it's really been a blessing to me, and I'm just really happy to be here with you all. And I've already found, so much that sustains me, and I've learned so much being here, and just thank you all very much.
Oh, no, it is me again. Oops, sorry. It is a joy to welcome each of you into our community of memory and hope. Will you walk together with us, sharing the joys and the responsibilities of membership? If you will, say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Members of Pathways, will you welcome these people into our congregation?
Yes.
Will you reach out to them in friendship, including them in our activities and fellowship?
Yes.
Will you be open to their unique gifts and perspectives?
Yes.
Will you extend a warm welcome to each of them, remembering that each of us was once a new member?
Yes. Oh, we join our strengths, talents, and commitment with yours. You are a part of us, and we are a part of you.
Thank you.
You too.
So becoming a member of Pathways Church is an important step, but it is only the first step. I charge you, our new members, to grow in your Unitarian Universalist faith. More importantly, I charge you to find and share your special gifts with us. Ours is a shared ministry. Each of us has a crucial role to play. We need you. We need your energy. We need your ideas. Give generously of yourselves, and your rewards and ours will be great.
Becoming a member of a Unitarian Universalist congregation requires the signing of the book, the membership book, but real membership is more than just signing the book. You come to sign our membership book now because you've done so much more. You've come on a personal journey. You've gotten to know Pathways. You've contemplated the responsibilities and benefits of being members of this congregation, and have decided to journey on with us in community to build a spiritual community that changes lives. We welcome you and invite you to sign the book in the assembly and then step across to the other side of the sanctuary. And there it is.
So I invite each of you to take a candle from that basket and then light it from the flame of our chalice. Just one at a time. Go ahead. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah. Good. Now we can really see them, can't we? Okay. So each of you brings light, vitality, and renewal to our community. Each of our lights has a common source. Together we form a beacon of hope to each other and our wounded world. May your light shine brightly among us for many years. Welcome to Pathways.
Please extinguish your candles.
Well, I was going to tell them after the clapping was over.
Okay.
Now you can extinguish your candle, and if you want to come down and just put it in that bowl.
We are truly enriched by the presence of these new members. Be sure to greet them after the service. We invite anyone interested in joining Pathways to plan to attend our Inquirers class and to continue to be involved in the life of this congregation.
All right, welcome.
Today, the children in religious education will learn how to handle the many expectations that come with new beginnings. Next Sunday, the children will explore the magic of being set free from expectations and the practice of suspending expectations. Today, the youth group will learn and discuss Greta Thunberg, a Swedish activist who, at age 15, began protesting outside the Swedish Parliament in August of 2018 about the need for immediate action to combat climate change. Next week, the youth will likewise explore the magic of being set free from expectations and the practice of suspending expectations. At this time, the children are invited to take part in religious education. Let us send them out with these words. We pass this flame of religious freedom from generation to generation. Today's call to worship is by Gary Kowalski. We gather here to worship, to seek the truth, to grow in love, to join in service, to celebrate life's beauty and find healing for its pain, to honor our kinship with each other and with the earth, to create a more compassionate world, beginning with ourselves, to wonder at the mystery that gave us birth, to find courage for the journey's end, and to listen for the wisdom that guides us in the quietness of this moment. Now please stand as you're willing and able and join our worship song, Life is the Greatest Gift of All.
That's number 2. And before we start singing the song, I want to make a little apology. Last week when we did that one of the songs, and I said, let's do women on one song, one verse where they were singing high, and men on another verse. That was my idea, and I realize now it was gender insensitive. It was. And I totally saw it through my cisgendered perspective, and I want to apologize for that. And I appreciate it was brought to my attention, which I am really thankful for, because I want to be a welcoming person and help further our mission to be a welcoming congregation. And so I want to apologize for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're forgiven.
challenging.
You may be seated. We never said it would be easy. Stephen Chamblee, our speaker today, is a popular Texas horticulturist, writer, and public speaker. During the last 40 years, he studied hundreds of gardens, collecting memories and maxims along the way. In his monthly column entitled Native Son for Neil Sperry's eGardens newsletter, Stephen shares his latest experiences in and around the Texas gardens. We now welcome Stephen Chamblee.
Thank you for having me today. I don't know if anybody's heard me speak before, but there should probably be some kind of warning label. I bet that'll probably work. Making you nervous, isn't it? All right, we'll just assuage. All right. Are we there? All right. Peace, love, and milagros, and milagros, Spanish for miracle, and that should soon become evident here. So anyway, I want to dedicate this to Elizabeth Parrish, who was a volunteer at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden when I worked there, and she told me I could do things that I didn't think I could do. So here's to her. So this kind of starts when I was 15. I had you know how 15 is. You think you know it all, but I recognized I was a little different than most people. That's a normal foot on the left and mine on the right, and that's a normal horseshoe, and that's an actual Clydesdale horseshoe there. So, but the most important thing was I had a premonition, and I had a premonition that I was going to die at 19. So when you're 15, you think you're going to die at 19. It kind of accelerates your pattern of living. So, you remember 17 when you couldn't do anything right, you know, no matter which direction you had. I graduated high school when I was 17. I moved to West Virginia, and I had, on my 4 years of high school, I had a little poster on the wall. And sorry, I'm used to looking at my screen from behind, so I may have to. Anyway, obviously it says sometimes what seems like an ending is only a new beginning. Now, I had to recreate this because the original has long since gone somewhere in all the moves. But I graduated from high school in Illinois and knew I didn't want to live there anymore. I wanted to go to West Virginia and become a hillbilly. So I moved to West Virginia, and I worked for about a month for my uncle, and he said, well, let's take a day off. So one Sunday, we went to Blackwater Falls State Park, and I came around the corner, and that was what I saw. It was the same waterfall that had hung on my wall my 4 years of high school. That's the actual picture I took of it back then. And so that was my introduction to what I call milagros. Now, milagros are, you know, miracle. It doesn't always have to be part the Red Sea and, you know, lightning and thunder and all that. Little things that happen. So this is about some of the things that have happened with me, and then hopefully it will get you to realize things that have happened in your own life, maybe even today or yesterday, that I was telling Jim. I was telling Jim I fell off a ladder 2 days ago. Sounds like a horrible thing. Well, when I was getting back on the ladder to go up, I saw a swarm. I was about to get stung in the face by a bunch of wasps. So if I hadn't fallen off the ladder, so I'll take it. So, all right. So I moved to Texas. I was still 17, arrived on my 18th birthday. Texas is a wonderful place. Has a lot of interesting things. By the way, I'm going to take that back. Just see, it's kind of the wind's blowing. Things are going to the left is what I'm thinking. Anyway, so I always like, even the horses will tell you you're right on. So even the horses will give you their opinion when you need to. You just don't find signs like this anywhere. And this is down in Wimberley. It's a 6-foot-tall cowboy boot, and I thought that'd probably work. So I want to tell a little story on myself. So I was 19 years old. I had long hair. I think I got, that little bumper sticker on my illustrious vehicle there says, Ropers raise beef, hippies raise hell. So I was doing all this, and basically I was kind of a big fan of Foghat, this English rock band, and I was trying to look like I was the fifth member of Foghat who just didn't make the photo shoot, So anyway, I got tickets to a Foghat concert. And so I went there, and of course it was fantastic, and I ended up getting front row seats, so it's jamming, and me and Lonesome Dave partying down, and we're passing things around in a neighborly fashion and all that. And so I come back to work. I was working in the sheet metal shop because it was in the middle of winter. And so I came back Monday, and all the young guys are like, "You went to Foghat?" I had my shirt, I was like, "Yeah, man." I was just so cool, I could barely stand myself, Had my Foghat T-shirt, still, my ears were still ringing, had the long hair. I'm just too cool to stay. Anyway, the foreman walks in, and he looks at me, and he looks at that shirt, and he goes, "Hog fart." I said, "Now, why would anybody have a shirt with hog fart on it?" And I was like, that says Foghat. And he goes, "Looks like hog fart to me." So guess what my nickname was for the next 2 months around the shop? So bless my heart. So anyway, I discovered a wonderful thing when I was young, It's basically if you can pull into a gas station, as long as you pay for the gas you pump in your car, then you can drive anywhere you want. So I went a lot of different places and saw things, and I went to Hemingway's grave. I'm actually laying on his grave there, and that's it. It was a big slab. People had left stuff. Ernie and I decided that was junk, so I swept it off and left him a cigar, a fishing lure, and some pistachios. So that was cool. But Northern California coast, Southern Oregon, oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. You got to get out of the car, put your feet in there, which you won't last long because that water's cold right there. And anyway, amazing stuff if you just get out of the car, So many people see this country and they just, oh, that's beautiful. And I want to stay in the air conditioning, because there's bugs and stuff out there. So anyway, but you miss all sorts of stuff. There's wisdom in everything you see, This is Spanish moss. The wisdom of Spanish moss is if you have it, you don't want it. If you don't have it, you want it. Sounds like a teenage boy, doesn't it? All the ladies know exactly what I'm talking about, and all the men are going, I ain't saying nothing. So, beautiful artwork along the way, and I found this on top of a mountain in Utah, and this guy had made this gravel stuff, and, this is amazing, the detail of this kind of thing. And so what's that tell you about this guy? It tells you he doesn't have grandkids. Can you imagine a little boy shuffling through there? And I got to stay at some illustrious places, which is why you travel when you're young, because you can put up with that kind of stuff. So, and I was taking selfies since the early 80s, because I went a lot of places by myself, and my arm was long enough with that Kodak camera to focus. You had to be 3 feet. So I love it. There's my reflection, my arm in the glasses there. So I wasn't good at it at first, but anyway. I've always been a tree hugger. I don't understand how anybody's not a tree hugger. And this is my favorite East Coast tree. This is at Longwood Gardens here, and that's a picture someone took of me. Thank you for getting the only shrub within 100 yards in the way of the tree. But that's a single giant sequoia in Yosemite, and I'm a big guy, so that's a really big tree. So. And this is Northern California. I went to see the redwoods there. Has anybody seen the redwoods in Northern California? All right, you call me out if I'm lying, okay? You just right here in front of everybody. You go in here, and it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen in your life. The ferns are 5, 6, 7 feet tall. The soil is like sponge under you. Every step is like a sponge. It's crazy. And it's noisy and deathly quiet at the same time. You can hear a bird fly by. You can hear a fly buzz by your head. It is otherworldly. And of course, the cathedral that you're in is the most amazing thing ever. And I've seen, fancy churches, and that's actually the Sistine Chapel, which I don't find particularly attractive. There's only one thing people recognize in it anyway. And but I'd much rather see that. And so my thought on this is, we're all of different kind of versions of faith on this. I think there's some kind of spirit going through the universe, and it is more prevalent in some areas. And boy, in a redwood forest, it's amazing. So, not to say God doesn't have a sense of humor. Anyway, So this thing is, and I know what you're looking at. You're looking at the epiphytes up in the tree, right? Okay. Yeah. So it's hard to ignore this thing hanging off a tree. And so, of course, I like to view things scientifically and all that. So I said, well, what is this? Anyway, it's a structure called a pneumatophore. And it is sometimes forms on old ginkgo trees, old redwood trees, and the same sort of thing ends up happening with bald cypress, except theirs goes up. And so somewhere there's a joke about one going down, one going, just leave it at that. So anyway, I worked at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden for a number of years, raised poinsettias. That's where I met Elizabeth Parrish. And so on her 90th birthday, I wrote her a poem, which I'd like to read for you. And this will be especially helpful if anybody here is over 70. And by the way, Elizabeth lived to be 94. So anyway, arthritis, bursitis, osteoporosis, cataracts, aching backs, horrid halitosis, glaucoma, hematoma, macular degeneration, sagging parts, sudden farts, constant constipation, aching joints. Say, what's the point of this birthday rhyme? It's to hold you near and tell you, dear, you get better all the time. So that was, Elizabeth liked that one a lot. So that was her, anyway. So I'm working at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. Everybody probably knows about the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And so I'm doing the illustrious job of emptying the trash containers on a Sunday morning. And so this couple walks by me, and they were sweet. They were probably upper 70s, early 80s, something like that. And they come walking along, and the man comes, they're walking 5 feet from me. He comes over to me. This is my nose here, let's say. I'll have you know, young man, we were married right here in this very garden. And of course, when somebody's doing that, I did the same thing you did, so. And so they went on, and I got to thinking, I thought, after I got over my shock, I said, this garden was finished in 1933. This was the early 80s. I'm thinking, might have been some of the first people married in the garden because, garden's a historic thing. So I went to the next trash can, passed them up, and waited for them, to come around. And I said, just out of curiosity, when's the last time, or when were you married? And the woman speaks up. She goes, 6 weeks ago tomorrow. So you never know in this world. So there was a 3-day weekend coming up, and it was a Thursday night, and man, I was sick. I was bad. So I knew my doctor was only open till noon on Friday, and he'd be closed on Monday. So I was like, well, I gotta have some relief here. So I called the doctor up on Friday morning, and hello, and I said, I'm really sick. I gotta come see. I'm sorry, we're all full this morning. And I said, yeah, I'm really sick, and Monday's a holiday. She says, well, we're all full. And I said, well, I'm really sick. I just need a little pill or whatever. And she said, well, if you're that sick, go to the emergency room. Click. And so, of course, I was like, wow. And then I thought about it for a minute. So I did what guys do. I went on up there. And, of course, that's who was answering the phone. So anyway. So I go in there, and she's busy on the phone with somebody else, and I write my name down, and I go sit down, and she sticks her head up over the little counter. She says, didn't I tell you we were full this morning? Yes, ma'am. What are you doing here? I just thought the doctor might see me. He might. Oh, for heaven's sake, good gracious. So then a minute later, I hear her and the doctor, and he looks over at me and kind of says, put him last, So, and sure enough, I went in there, and 42 seconds later, I'm walking out with a prescription, smart enough to have my copay counted out, and just slid it on the counter as I went out. So Tuesday morning came, man, I was feeling good again, okay? And so I made a little stop at the Botanic Garden, and so I went to visit my doctor again and brought him, I walked in the door with 24 of the finest roses ever harvested at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. And as soon as I walked in, the lady saw me, and she said, oh, I'll tell the doctor you're here. And I said, they're not for the doctor. And she cracked immediately. She said, I said, yes, they're for you. I don't understand. I said, well, you were just looking out for your boss, and, you had a schedule to keep, and all the people are waiting and all. And And she goes, oh, but I was mean to you. And I started cracking up. I know. But, you know, and pretty soon we're over there. Blah, and all the doctor comes. He just walks back to the back and all that stuff. But the lesson I got from the whole thing is that sometimes people who need roses aren't the ones that deserve them. So what a great life lesson for me in that. So y'all remember Y2K? Okay. So, you know, Y2K hit at the Botanic Garden. I don't know if you know. It was particularly hard at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden. So this is an account of what happened there. By the way, Y2K started with that and then went to a horrific thing. And then you didn't know where it was going to go. But at the Botanic Garden, when the century plant rolled over, the time didn't work on the clock vine. And the compass plant didn't know which way to turn. Then the 4 o'clock got in a squabble with the 11 o'clock. Sundews and sunflowers were seen ganging up on the moonflowers and the nightshades, at least until the night-blooming cactus got seriously involved. Thanksgiving cactus tried to trample the Easter lilies, but luckily the archangel intervened. The Chinese lanterns all went out, so they had to be replaced with candle trees and a chandelier plant. The dumb cane spoke to the cauliflower ear, then turned into a chatterbox. Not to be outdone, the touch-me-not had a run-in with forget-me-not, until once was love in a mist, turned into love lies bleeding. Adding to the chaos, the perennially patient impatience called the police when they spotted Creeping Charlie in a drunkard's dream with Candy Tuft, and they were singing, "Oh, my darling, lemon time." Authorities said loco weed was involved. On the bright side, balloon flowers welcomed the first baby's breath, which shed baby's tears, while the gardeners were counting baby's toes. Of course, the beeches, birches, cherries, and mulberries were all weeping. The organ pipe cactus bellowed and the burning bush glowed. The snowdrop dropped snow on the mountain, while the Star of Bethlehem shined. Jack was in the pulpit when he spied Sweet William with Heather. And boy, howdy did Johnny jump up when he found out. And my silly piece of paper, it's same as your piece of paper. It just would not turn for the life of me. As the gold dust settles out, maybe things will return to normal around here. But until yesterday, today, and tomorrow figure themselves out, the cosmos may never be the same. And why it all happened in the first place is still a wisteria. And in the strangest twist of all fates, I knew I was going to be waiting in that doctor's office for hours, so I took a reference book in there, and I basically wrote that while I was in the waiting room of that doctor's office while I was sick. So anyway, you can still do stuff. Humility on a hard shell. I used to have a boss who introduced me to all sorts of things, and he said, we're going to put some water lilies in the pond down there at the bottom of the reflection garden. I said, well, sounds great. And I said, how can I help? He said, don't worry about it. You just need to execute the plan. We've had it all worked out. We got everything. We got experts here, and we've done the collection. I said, where's the collection? I said, well, it's in the compound there. And so you're to take the collection, get cinder blocks, put them on the bottom of the pond so the top of the pot's about 8 inches underneath the ground, or underneath the surface of the water. And I was like, well, I mean, it sounds great, but he said, I don't need any ifs, ands, or buts. I need it done. You're going to install it on Wednesday. We're going to have dedication Thursday morning. So I said, well, yeah, but I don't want to hear it. I don't want any excuses. I don't want any lip. I don't want any mouth. I just want it done. So anyway, this is my introduction into the management philosophy. If you have a problem, you are the problem. So anyway, what I was trying to tell him about was this little turtle out there named Willie Nelson. Okay? Now, Willie Nelson was a and like his namesake, he had a few friends. Well, he had, like his namesake, a whole bunch of friends, okay? So I went and did as I was told and put this thing in there Thursday morning. As all the dignitaries are working in there, we go down the pond, and it pretty much looks like that. And so my boss was like, why didn't you? I said, they're all in there like, what happened? And blah, blah. I said, I was trying to tell you about the turtles. There's 3,000 turtles in this pond. Well, anyway, he yelled and went off and all that stuff. So, is there a good time to mouth off to your boss? Nope. But as he drove away, I kind of felt like we were all justified there. So anyway, so I got accepted into the Longwood graduate program. Longwood Gardens is probably the nicest garden in the country, certainly the most well-funded garden in the country, southeast Pennsylvania, a little town called Kennett Square. It was the summertime playground of Pierre S. DuPont. Yes, that DuPont. And anyway, magnificent garden, about 1,072 acres, 350 of which most people visit, and all sorts of funny stuff in there. Topiary gardens and beautiful flowers. It goes with these giant copper beeches and fountains, little fountains, big fountains, extensive fountains, conservatories. There's actually close to 9 acres under glass. Put that so you're thinking, talking about a heating bill in the winter. So anyway, amazing stuff. And I'm just showing you some gratuitous pictures of a Mickey Mouse plant there. And also, that's Habatica and all sorts of interesting and amazing stuff. And, this is why when I told you I had a bunch of slides, most of these aren't taken anyway. So, but beautiful stuff. Orchids, that's my favorite orchid because it's kind of the weird one. It's, no wonder I like the weird one. I'm the weird one. So anyway, smells heavenly, but the flowers hang out the bottom, and the whole plant's a strange and curious affair. My favorite plant at Longwood is right behind me. It's Encephalartos woodii, and that doesn't mean anything to anybody. In 1895 in South Africa, they found one. They have never found one in the wild since. Okay, so it's a male. So because there's no females, you can't ever get seeds, so so it's basically an extinct plant, but it does put off pups every once in a while, and Longwood Gardens has one of the pups. And so it's interesting that these people in South Africa know this thing because they have it's probably the rarest plant in the world, okay? But to keep it, you've got to give it away because if an insect or disease problem happens there or whatever, it's all gone. So to preserve it, you have to give it away. Sounds kind of like love, doesn't it? And your life. So anyway, that's a beautiful thing. You got to give it away. So one of my favorite things that ever happened there, I'm there with, last time I was up there, I was with Tim Jennings. He's a water garden guy. So we're looking at all the water lilies and stuff, and it's magnificent. And I went back to my grad school days when I was up there, and I had asked Tim if I could help him in the pond. There he is. That's a great plant there. He's got a water platter. Looks like that on the bottom. Ferocious thing. So I was a grad student, and I want to help in there. So he says, okay, well, he gives me a pair of boots. And before I step in the water, he says, no, just be careful. I said, was it slick on the bottom? I assumed. He said, nope. I said, well, you worried about? No, just watch out for the magic. I said, the magic? And he said, yeah, the magic. MAGIC? Yes, okay. So whatever, so I get in a pond. He said, just cut off any leaf, it's kind of turning yellow. So I'm off in there. I have been in this pond for, I don't know, a minute and a half. And this voice from behind me comes. And it says, are these your water lilies? And I turn around, and there's this woman looking at me like this. And I'm going, yes, ma'am. I mean, she's just looking at me like she's ready to take me right there, And it was the beautiful part. I'd never realized what it was like to be a young Elvis or maybe Sean Connery in his prime. But anyway, and I look back over at Tim, and he's going. And I said, does this happen? When she left, does this happen? He says, all day long. He said, I don't know what it is with water lilies, but my wife hates that I work in this pond. So anyway. So there was another lady that came by, and she had a bunch of grandkids in tow. And y'all know what this little plant out in the field is? Sensitive mimosa. You touch the leaves and it collapses. This is an aquatic version of that plant. And so I was over there, and we had this, and Grandma's walking around, and the kids are going crazy and all that. And I realized I thought, so I showed Grandma this. And I said, do you know anybody who, Bobby and Susie, and she got the kids over there. And then they she touched the leaves, and they all collapsed. And, Grandma, I didn't know you were magic. I thought, man, sometimes you got to take those. And I got a picture of it, a little towhead. And sometimes you got to pass it on because, it's not all about me. So Longwood was a bridge to a lot of other things. Great gardens out there and beautiful things that you can. I love this as a meditation garden because there's one chair, not two. Whole different dynamic there. That's down at the I'm a Hog's place called Bio Bend. Crazy Gardens. If you ever get a chance to go see Chamblee, I would highly recommend it. As far as gardens go, this is probably the most fence. Okay, it looks good. If it's old, paint off of it, it looks good. Everything behind it or on it, so it's a fantastic. I found it down in Rosenberg's garden. This is particularly because at the Fort Worth Botanic Garden, my God, there was the rose garden and the daylily garden and the iris garden. And God help you if you got an iris off in the daylily garden. It was like a sin. So anyway, I like that business. Most gardeners don't look like stuff. But, anyway, we all have. Anyway, so we have these grandmas. This is I'll try and make this. This grandma got tired of being ignored by her grandkids. They would come in, they're playing with the phone, they'd grab a cookie, go sit down, ignore grandma for 2 hours. Maybe grandma, and out they went. So kids come in, they're punching, no cookies. And grandma's over there working on the table. No cookies, I know, I'm busy. And, the little kids, it's like, well, what are you doing? Never mind, I'm busy. Kid went over there, and then he finally got a little bored. There's no cookies? There's no cookies. Well, what are you doing? Oh, for heaven's sake. Signs for the garden. Oh, heaven's sake. Come on over here and sit down. So she gets going on this, and then pretty soon Bobby's doing this, and little Susie comes over, and they're making signs, and this woman says, I had to go get a plant catalog. I was looking up names. She said, I was making signs for plants I never heard of or intend to grow, because I got them doing something. She said, now, when they come over, we got a deal. They come, the cookie bowl is full. They put the phone down, grab 3 cookies, go out the back door because they want to see their signs. She said, once I got them out the back door, I got them. That's a smart grandma. Now, this one's down in Wimberley, Texas. She just had a little more money, so she just built that. So anyway, Shandor Gardens, I just thought I'd tell you just a little bit about it. It was made by a portrait artist, and he actually, that's a picture of Queen Elizabeth and Douglas Shandor reviewing her coronation portrait. It's unbelievable. She was crowned in 1952, and she's still there. So you talk about someone who's not moving on. So anyway, so Douglas built this garden out of amazing things. He took great delight in it. And it is a weird garden because it will just suck you right in. And and there's nothing really obscene about this picture, but I admit it's disturbing. So that's kind of the garden back in the day. That's kind of what it looks like now, back in the day and now. And a little snow thing just to cool us off a little bit. Anyway, it's a pretty little garden. It's about 5 acres, and just all sorts of stuff. You got to do the simple things. Somebody talked about planting a flower garden. I had been in horticulture for 35 years, hadn't grown seashell cosmos, little tubular petals on that. So I finally did that, trying out some different stuff. I built that thing, and I made it to look good. I wanted it to look good whether it was working or not, because water features are kind of iffy. So anyway, that was kind of fun. And just looking around the garden, it's an artificial turf lawn, and we mow it every week. Why do you mow it every week? Because we have brushes and vacuums that nothing sucks the junk up off of it better than a lawnmower. So we just mow it. So it is a little harrowing, though. Yes, I know. So anyway, I wrote a little book about Shandor Gardens, and it's a beautiful thing. It has to thank some people, gave the history, showed some pictures of the house, some candid pictures of the Shandors. The garden was after Ina died. His wife, Shandor, died in 53. She died in 78. Garden was abandoned for 16 years. This couple called the Bradfords bought it. They got it going again. Then they sold it to the city. And I got there in 2006, and I left about a month ago. So, yeah, it's weird. So, anyway, I wrote this book, had a nice little picture. And the people say, wow, you wrote a book. That's fantastic. And I get to feeling good about myself. And then they'd say, I'd love a free copy. Thank you. Nothing says love to an author like, I'll take it if it's free. So anyway, I just kind of but I did rediscover wonderment at the garden. So it's actual word. And anyway, palm, the new growth is kind of just amazing magic. You can do simple stuff with little fruits, berries off of there. There was a gourd. This is just a gourd flower. And I was like, that's just the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. And little blue fruits on mondo grass. And every once in a while we get a garden visitor which comes up and surprise. He scared the bejeebies out of me. So there was a plant called Purple Heart. So I'm leading the tour. And it's the First Baptist ladies from somewhere or another. And there's about 14 of them in a line. And Queen Bee is right behind me. Okay. You know who I mean by Queen Bee? She organized the whole thing. She dominates the whole thing and all that. Anyway, so a lady about 4 or 5 past asked me what that plant was, and before I could answer, Queen Bee says, it's a wandering Jew. And I said, well, it's closely related to wandering Jew, but this one's called Purple Heart. And then she looked at the lady and corrected me and says, it's a wandering Jew. And I said, well, if you go into a nursery and you ask for a wandering Jew, you'll get one. But if you want this plant, you need to ask for Purple Heart. To which Queen Bee looked at the woman and went, well, I don't know what happened. These little horns came up on my head or something. I said, actually, this plant's just been renamed. It's now known as a meandering Christian. Queen Bee didn't say another word to me for the rest of the tour. Bless her heart. So, and we had, there are some things that happen that just are inexplicable. We had some leftover pieces of bamboo, so I put them on top of this water here and kind of tied them together with we have high budgets over there, so a little baling wire. I'm trying to create this grid. And on a Tuesday, the Southern Historical Garden Society comes by, and one of them said, that's the most interesting and innovative thing I've seen done with bamboo in 20 years. And I thought, yes. Well, on Thursday, I'm out there fixing something or another in there, and this little old lady comes by, didn't even look at me, just was shuffling by and said, you're an abomination, everything Douglas Shandor stood for. And just kept walking. And I was like, I don't, and it was just, and off she went. So, and I sat there for a few minutes, and I'm like, well, I don't even know how to take that. An abomination? I mean, And then I swear I heard from the heavens above the voice of Douglas Shandor. And he said, don't worry about it. She was grumpy as a little girl, too. So I'd always wanted to build something in the old parking lot there, so we put a labyrinth in there. Nothing complicated about a labyrinth. You start with a little cross shape, work your way out. All sorts of stuff. Interestingly enough, Native Americans have labyrinths. When they're drawn, every other culture has the entrance on the bottom. When they're drawn, Native Americans on top. And interesting there. So you can get as simple as complex as you want. And you can make them out of a number of different materials, anything like that. That one's probably available for about $6 the day after Thanksgiving. So, so we decided to build this labyrinth. So I built this labyrinth, and that was the picture on the front page of the paper. And there's the final stone that went in. There's a little story about that stone. So anyway, we consecrated it with fire, and everything was cool, and everybody loved it, and blah, blah, blah. So I'm out there picking out the stone in the stone yard. And, of course, you can't just pick out any rock. You got to have the stone. So I'm looking all over this stone yard. And, it's a 2-acre stone yard. So I'm looking everywhere. And then I hear this laughing. And I look behind me, and there it is. It's Javier on the loader. And he's sitting there, and I said, what are you laughing at? He said, I'm laughing at you. I said, what are you laughing at? He said, you look like a woman shopping for shoes. I said, I know it's horrible. He says, you have looked at every stone in this stone yard. And I said, well, yeah. He said, so, he said, but you should be careful because choosing a stone is like choosing a woman. And I was like, that sounds pretty deep, And he said, because some come from right next door, some from far away. Some are colorful, some are not. Some are exotic, some are not. He said, but you need to choose. Be careful when you choose your stone, or another man will come and take your stone. And I was like, wow, this is deep. Anyway, then he slaps me on the shoulder and laughs. And he said, have you chosen one? I said, yeah, I want that one over there. Are you sure? So we picked this stone out and put it in place. And as we were I asked Toby, the guy who was working with me, I said, does it meet your seal of approval? That was our thing, you know. And he said, it's spectacular. And he said, it looks like it's been there 100 years. And I said, that's good because we're married to it now. Okay? So I wrote that little story up for Neil Sperry's eGardens. And the problem was, this is the rest of the story. By the way, Paul Harvey was kind of cool in his own way. I like that. Anyway, so the rest of the story is that I was dating a woman at the time who heard my story about selecting the rock, selecting the woman. We're married to it now, and she interpreted my trip to the stone yard as a different kind of thing, you know. So when there was no ring forthcoming, she kind of Dukes of Hazzard style flew out of there, and that was okay because I ended up with my wife Patty, and a much better choice for me. And she likes guacamole and a big time, and I can't get her to try on the corn suit though. So anyway, maybe's my thing here. And yes, I'm almost done here. She has a schedule to meet here. So anyway, there was an interesting. I'm leading a tour at Shandor Gardens. And I'm about to show them the fountain here. And the fountain's an interesting thing. It's an old thing, and it was made with Coke bottles embedded in it. And I don't know what happened there. Coke bottles and 7-Up bottles embedded into it. So I'm bringing a tour down. I'm already telling these ladies about there's one guy on the tour. He's at the very end. And I'm telling them about the Coke models and the stuff in it and all that. And I look over, and the man has just come around the corner, and he's just, you can just see him, just his blood draining. He's just turning white as a sheet. And I'm like, oh my God, there's a heart attack going on right here, you know. So I go over and grab him and support him, and he's got his hand over his face like this, and I'm telling the other, dial 911, call the office, let's go get some water, blah, 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 to all these people in there, and he's kind of doing this. And I said, what are you doing? Sit down. And anyway, so it took him, he said, do you want me to call an ambulance? I said, I'm thinking this is a double negative. I don't know, anyway. So anyways, I said, so he just wanted to sit down. He took his hand down and found that he'd been crying. And now I'm like, what's the deal? And he said that when he was about 9 years old, his father took him to visit a garden somewhere. He said, when you're a kid, when you're away from home, you're just away from home. You don't know whether you're 5 miles away from home or 50 miles away from home. He said, we were at this place, and this man invited my father and I to put a Coke bottle in this fountain he was building. This was 1950. And I thought, well, that's just the most amazing thing I've ever heard. And he held his hand up. He said, my father died 2 weeks later, and that's the last thing I remember about my dad. And of course, now I don't know, I got goose pimples just thinking, but for Douglas Shandor to plant a seed of kindness in 1950, and I got to see it germinate 63 years later, was an amazing thing. And so I think about that when I'm even if the little rat down the block doesn't deserve it, be nice to kids. You never know what they're carrying. You never know what. So, and I have a feeling that's one of the paramount things of this church is just kindness. So, pass on the kindness. I'm in this garden. I'm looking at this statue, and I recognize the owner. She's the only one who doesn't have a name badge on. And I said, I love this little statue. And she said, yeah, I used to have a little boy. And of course, I'm how do you step in these things, Chamblee, But she said, no, that's okay. I had envisioned him growing up playing with the fish and the frogs and things around the pond. And, I said, I'm sorry. And she goes, no, it's okay. Just because he died doesn't mean he's not a part of our family anymore. And boy, did that sink into my heart, I don't think I could make up words like that. So anyway, it was kind of an amazing thing. And I'm at this other garden, and I see this bench, and I see the woman who has the garden because she has no name tag on. And I said, this is a fantastic bench. I said, where'd you get it? And she said, I made that bench. I said, no way. She said, way? And I said, well, tell me the story. She said, I don't think you have time for the story. And I said, oh, ma'am, I live and breathe stories. So, if there's She said, after 25 years of being told that I was worthless and ugly and useless, I decided to leave. I finally got the courage up to leave. She said, and I couldn't even tell my family where I was going because I knew that he would come and get me. And so she ended up in a little suburb of Philadelphia and in a duplex. And the woman on the other side of the duplex worked stone and had these little stone statues and stuff out in the backyard. And her first morning there, she said there wasn't even anything to unpack. All I had was 2 suitcases. And so she said, my first morning there, I looked out there and I'm looking at the stuff, and the woman comes over with a hot cup of coffee and says, welcome. And she said, what, are these yours? Oh, yeah. She says, you can do this. She goes, oh, I can't do anything right. She says, yes, you can. And she said, right that minute, that woman came over, got an apron, put an apron on this woman. She's still trying to get her morning coffee. She's over there. She puts a grinder in her hands, and she said, well, here, try this, do this, and all this stuff. She said, an hour later, she sent me to the stone yard. I was like, I don't even know where. Anyway, she said, I found out later they coached the guy at the stone yard a little bit. I brought this stone back, and I built this bench. The first day of her newfound freedom. She said, I've moved like 5 times since, but this bench always comes with me. And she said, I go out and I have my coffee on it in the morning. Every time I realize I'm not ugly, I'm not useless, and I'm not worthless. And boy, you never know what somebody's garden contains. This is pretty quick. There was down in Houston, this guy has this rock outside his door. I said, what's that? You know, because I thought it's kind of a cool little thing. He said, that's my gratitude rock. I said, what's a gratitude rock? He said, every morning when I leave the house, he said, I move stuff from one side to the other. I'm grateful I have this. I'm grateful I don't have this. I'm grateful that my friend Bob lived through his surgery. I'm grateful I don't have cancer. He said, some days, most days takes me 15, 20 seconds. He said, some days I'm out there 20 minutes. So, and I have a gratitude rock outside of my house too. It'll change your life. I had a little dog named Belle, and he used to go with me. Always had one ear up, one ear down. And so I had planned to Oregon, and the day before I left, Belle got out, UPS truck was just over in a, just instant, And so what do? You get on the plane, and you go to Oregon, and so I'm on the beach in Oregon, and I'm walking around, and I'm missing, I feel out of sorts and stuff. And I see this little plant over here on the side. Well, it's a relative, it's a castivia, related to Indian paintbrush. Okay, it's just a species that lives along the West Coast. So I see this little paintbrush, which reminds me of Texas, which reminds me of Belle. So now I'm sitting there, and I'm going, so I'm missing my dog again, and this and that. It was the most amazing thing. It was way down the beach, probably 100 yards. This couple was playing with a young dog. He was running in and out of the surf. And he turned, and he started running right at me. I mean, full blast. And at first I thought, well, this is odd, because he's still way away. And he's coming. And it appeared by the time he was about from me to you, I thought, he's going to jump on me. And he was easily, anyway, and he jumps in my arms. And, and I'm go back, and he's giving me the puppy kisses like Belle used to and all that. And it was amazing. My wife got a picture of this dog, and this dog's just going nuts on me. And, of course, I'm I'm a mess and all this stuff. And the people come up, and they're apologizing for the dog, and oh, no. But I don't know what's going on. But how did that dog know? But it knew. And there are some inexplicable things in this world. So here's the bell. I got one last thing for you. It's called The Significance of One. It was inspired by Eliatris. It's the only thing blooming within 3 miles where I could see. And so I've always been impressed or intrigued by things that are just singular. So one hug can change a life. One kind word can heal a heart. One pill can cure or kill you. One small step can begin a great journey. One day was your first, and one day will be your last. One thank you note really can make someone feel appreciated. One bold moment can change the course of your life. One great teacher can inspire you forever. One worm can indeed spoil the whole apple. One true friend is probably enough. One child can make two parents. One well-timed kiss can turn your whole world upside down. One packet of sunflower seeds can make a gardener. One seed can a forest birth, and one match can return it all to earth. One attaboy can show you the difference between a boss and a leader. And while one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch, one wet mouse sure spoils a whole bowl of punch. And one homemade peach cobbler with bluebell ice cream can make the most crusty curmudgeon smile. And one sunrise might make you realize that it just might be the last one you ever get to see. So you might consider living the kind of life that's worthy of the gift. That's what I got for you today. I hope you enjoyed listening to that half as much as I did to you, because boy, when you relive the memories, it really gets to me.
Stephen, you are indeed a miracle. And the watchword that we'll take home today is watch out for the magic. As we have received, so we are asked to give. Please use the offering envelopes provided. Green envelopes are for pledges or gifts to Pathways. Gold envelopes are for donations to our outreach partner. Our outreach partner for the months of July, August, and September is Mid-Cities Care Corps, established in 1981 with a mission to preserve the independence of senior neighbors in Northeast Tarrant County. It connects clients with caring volunteers to provide 3 programs: transportation, light housework, and social outreach. Their Helping Hands program assists seniors with minor home repairs, and no fees are charged for their services. For more information, see the link in your weekly newsletter. We will now receive the offering.
When I look out over a green field of clover, or watch the sunset at the end of the day, I get kind of moody when I see such beauty. Everything's beautiful in its own way. When I see a fountain flow from a mountain, or see April showers bring flowers to May, I can't help but ponder, life is such a wonder, and everything's beautiful in its own way. Words can't describe what I feel inside when I see the beauty in each coming day. What my eyes behold can't be bought or sold, and everything's beautiful in it.
Thank you for your generous gifts, kindly and freely given this morning and by mail throughout the month to support our congregation and our outreach effort. Your offering is truly appreciated. We hope that each of you in your individual path through the joys and questions of life found some common ground with your fellow travelers at Pathways here today. This week, we are highlighting our Pathways volunteers who serve on the Finance and Stewardship team. This includes our treasurer, Luke Kimball, and the following members: Jim Moore, Kimala Ledbetter, Alyn Hanford, Jeff Dyson, Tracy Anderton, and Barbara Johnson. Each takes turns giving up their time on Sunday during the second hour to assure that your pledges and donations are accounted for. This group represents responsible stewardship of Pathways finances, assuring that we have a solid foundation for our future. Back in July, in a one-day special collection, Pathways donated $497 to a Faithify campaign for a memorial mural honoring the slain civil rights activist Reverend James Reeb. The campaign was initiated by the UU community of Casper, Wyoming, Casper being Reverend Reeb's hometown. That mural is now finished. Artist Tony Elmore has created a beautiful and meaningful work of art. An inscription reads, "This mural was created to inspire empathy as the greatest human power, sparked by the legacy of our hometown everyday hero, Reverend James Reeb, 1927 to 1965. Next slide. As Jennifer extinguishes our chalice flame, let us say these words together. To lead a life in which we are inspired and can inspire others, our hearts must be alive. They must be filled with passion and enthusiasm. As we extinguish this flame, we affirm that within the heart of every person exists the flame of wisdom that can transform suffering into the kindling for the fire of creativity. To our first-time visitors, if you would like to learn more about Pathways, stay around after worship. Talk to us. We'd love to meet you. Be sure to share your contact information with us at the welcome table in the foyer. And if you like, you may sign up on the website for our weekly newsletter to be informed of upcoming events at Pathways. There are meetings and events here at Pathways throughout the week. Here are just a few, along with other announcements. For our full lineup, see the Pathways Weekly newsletter or the events calendar on our website, pathwaysuu.org. Also, take home the order of service that's in your chairs because it has dates of incoming events on the announcement side. Now, Stephen Braun will say a few words about North Texas Giving Day.
I'm going to do that from here. I think you can hear me. North Texas Giving Day is this Thursday, the 19th. All you have to do is go to northtexasgivingday.org. Put Pathways UU Church in the one field that's there, and our logo will come up first in an array of all the different nonprofits that are in it. I was asked to explain the match. The match is unknown.
Pardon me, Steve. Could you go to the, because they can't hear you upstairs.
Oh, right. Then I thought I'd put myself in, but I'll get over it.
It is important to see the plan.
Thanks, Lynn. North Texas Giving Day is this Thursday, the 19th. I was asked to explain how basically a number of foundations have contributed an unknown amount of money. Usually it's in the $1 million range or more. And then an unknown number of nonprofits such as Pathways. This time, for the first time ever, we participated. There was a application process that was fairly onerous, and Sandy Moore and I got us through all the steps to be in at this time for the first time. So however much money is raised by all the nonprofits on this North Texas Giving Day will be an amount of money in relation to the amount the foundations put in the pot. That ratio is the match amount. Sometimes, and I've done this in nonprofits in the past, it's between 1% and 3%, sometimes 5%. It just depends. So I can't really tell you how much the match is, but whatever we give will be leveraged by the amount of that match. Go to northtexasgivingday.org sometime between 6 a.m. and midnight this Thursday the 19th, northtexasgivingday.org. Put Pathways UU Church, 3 words, in the organization field, and you'll be directed to donate at the site.
Thank you. So once we've gone through that arduous application process, are we now in for good?
We're in this year, and that'll make next year's much easier.
Okay, thank you. The Pathways Women's Book Group will gather this Thursday at 1 p.m. here at Pathways to finish discussion of Still Life by Louise Penny. The book group meets first and third Thursdays of each month at 1 o'clock, and newcomers are always welcome. Thank you to our wonderful hosts at last night's circle dinners. Thanks to all who brought food and all who attended. Everyone went home happy. The Climate and Environmental Justice Ministry at UUA is supporting global climate strike demonstrations for school students and adults that are occurring across the country. You are invited to participate in a climate strike in Fort Worth at City Hall on Friday, September 20th, so that's next Friday, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. The global climate strikes began August 20th, 2018, when 15-year-old Greta Thunberg began skipping school to sit in front of the Swedish Parliament for action on global warming. Fort Worth City Hall is located at 200 Texas Street in downtown Fort Worth. Let's go and make a stand for climate action. The Pathways Men's Group will meet on Friday, September 20th, next Friday, at 7 p.m. at Ted Kosmersky's home. Ted, stick your hand up. Their home is at 7417 Douglas Lane in North Richland Hills, and his phone number is in the member directory. Ted is providing beer and wine. Bring your own sodas and snacks if you like. We had a good first men's group meeting last month. We hope to see you there this month. We are men, not we, you guys, are men doing great men things. Scout Pack 1013 is selling popcorn again. The Scouts have been out and about at Lowe's and Walmart for the past 3 weekends, working to raise the money to support the Cub Scout program here at Pathways. The Scouts and leaders decided to be ambitious this year and set a total goal of $10,000. As crazy as they might sound, and in only 3 weeks of the drive, we're already at $8,400. We need your help to take them to the finish line. Cub Scouts are asking for your support before and after Common Ground to buy and take home some delicious popcorn. Problem is, I haven't seen them out there today.
Hey, Marge.
Yes.
We actually surpassed our goal. We're at 11,000.
Yay! Are you still selling?
Well, we are. We're at Walmart here in Hers.
Are you selling here?
Not at the moment because they're
Okay.
out at Walmart.
Oh,
right now.
okay.
But we'll take donations.
So we'll all leave and go to Walmart, right? Thank,
We'll come back next weekend and sell right now.
thank you.
Thank you guys for supporting our Scout program. We appreciate it.
Is there something in the Bible for UUs? Explore Marcus Borg's Reading the Bible Again for the first time in a book study group. It starts next Sunday, September 22nd at 11:30 here at Pathways. Steve Braun will be facilitating the group, and there's a sign-up sheet on the table right out here in the coffee room. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Did you know that 2/3 of all gun-related deaths are suicide? On Sunday, September 22nd, next Sunday, at Pathways Church, Moms Demand Action will have Dr. Brian Dixon speak to us for Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Dr. Dixon presented on this topic last year. He was very informative and helpful, and we look forward to hearing from him again. There will also be a short presentation about the Be Smart Safe Gun Storage Program. You won't want to miss this important meeting. Come and bring a friend. The Nonviolent Communication Fall Practice Sessions will begin on Wednesday, October 2nd from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and will continue every first and third Wednesday through December 18th. The NVC classes will begin Sunday, October 6th and run through December 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. on Sundays. Contact Beth Wasson if you're interested in getting involved. After we break for coffee and conversation, we will continue with several adult discussion groups. Harried Reasoners meets here in the sanctuary. This week, Stephen Braun and Matthew Tresher will co-present part of a two-part series including selections from A Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. The first topic is a deep look into logical fallacies. On My Path will meet upstairs in the loft. This is a group for adults to celebrate and deepen their spiritual journey. It is open to all speakers from any path and is a safe place to speak your truth in a circle of trust. And Soul Matters will meet in the library. A reminder to parents, please pick up your children from the nursery and religious ed immediately after Common Ground so that all ages, including the nursery workers and teachers, can share in the fellowship and food. The nursery will reopen at 11:30, or since it's 11:30 now, for the adult discussion groups. And now please stand as you are willing and able and join the choir in singing our closing hymn, Let It Be a Dance.
Morning star comes out.
closing words today are by Marjorie Newland Learning. Remembering that the universe is so much larger than our ability to comprehend, let us go forth from this time together with the resolve to stop trying to reduce the incomprehensible to our own petty expectations, so that wonder, that sense of what is sacred, can find space to open up our minds and illumine our lives. Blessed be. Go in peace. Okay, sounds good. We'll pick up the adult discussion groups at 12.